So that way people could go in anytime and drop their tithe off.
But in the beginning, in the original pattern, that's what they were supposed to do, was to give the temple shekel.
Mm-hmm.
Remember Jesus standing there and when the widow came in and she had her one, her one
Might.
token and it was all that she had. That was on the Sabbath.
Mm. I doubt if it was the Sabbath.
What's that?
I doubt if it was a Sabbath because she wouldn't be doing money on Sabbath.
When did they get together?
Well, they got together, but they just didn't
They-
deal in money. Like Kimberly said, they wouldn't even carry money on Sabbath.
Didn't they go to the synagogue on Sabbath?
Okay, Keith, we're ready.
I'm not sure about that. I'm just asking.
The synagogues were open all the time. It wasn't just on Sabbath.
All right. We'll make way for Keith.
Range this up here. Shall we bow our heads for prayer? Heavenly Father, be with me as we go over things that you have and your people have written in the Bible, and then what Mrs. White has quoted for us here at the time of the end. Be with us and everybody that's watching, and help them make sure that they are aware that your presence are with us and them wherever they are every day. In your name, amen. Let's see here. Need to make this okay. Eventually, not today, but I want to do which I have never done before, is on the three angels of Revelation 18. And going through, there's three verses on that starts before that gets into the three angels message. And those three verses, the first one, I came across this quote by Mrs. White, and we're going to delve into this here quote and go through it first. When this is a quote that's then. When Protestantism shall stretch her hand across the gulf to grasp the hand of the Roman power, when she shall reach over the abyss to clasp hands with spiritualism, when under the influence of this threefold union, and we're going to go into this threefold union, our country shall repudiate every principle of its constitution, not some of them, but every principle, as a Protestant and Republican government, and shall make provision for the propagation of papal falsehoods and delusions. Then we may know that the time has come for the marvelous working of Satan, and that the end is near. And that's from the 5th volume of the Testimonies. And I put this again so you can see this is what we're going to start out talking about, this threefold union. This threefold union is Protestantism, the Roman power, and spiritualism. And we're going to go through each one of those and look and define what that they are. And there is some different definitions of some of them. What is Protestantism? And I got from three different, one is from Wikipedia, then Merriam-Webster Dictionary, and then Britannica. Protestants follow the theological tenets of the Protestant Reformation, a movement that began in the 16th century with the goal of reforming the Catholic Church from perceived errors, abuses, and discrepancies. That's from Wikipedia. I guess they don't know very much about the Book of Revelation. Number two, a member of several church denominations denying the universal authority of the Pope and affirming the Reformation principles of justification by faith alone, the priesthood of all believers, and the primacy of the Bible as the only source of revealed truth. And that justification by faith alone, that there is one of the things that we got from Martin Luther. And the third one is from Britannica. A Protestant is a member of a branch of Christianity that separates from the Roman Catholic Church during the 16th century. So that's three different ideas of different what a Protestant is. So next is, what is the Roman power? Roman power. Roman refers to a person from Rome or a citizen of the ancient Roman Empire. It can also describe things related to Rome, such as the Roman Catholic Church or the style of upright printing letters known as Roman type. So, and I think this was from Wikipedia. I didn't put it down there. So the Roman power is the Roman Catholic Church. So now, what is spiritualism? And this is what I really wanted to talk about, because a lot of people will focus on the first two, but they won't focus on the third. Spiritualism is the belief that spirits of the deceased can communicate with the living, typically through a medium. But not always. It passes a range of beliefs about the afterlife and the nature of existence beyond the physical world. And when you look at movies, you look at us, they talk a lot about the afterlife and what happens after you die, and that there is a nature of existence beyond the physical world. So we're going to see some examples of that. When Protestantism shall, and this here is, I put this in there again, when Protestantism shall stretch your hand across the gulf to grasp the hand of the Roman power. It does not say when the United States Congress or anybody else. When Protestantism shall stretch your hand across the gulf to grasp the hand of the Roman power, when she shall reach over this abyss to clasp hands with spiritualism, when under the influence of this threefold union, there's three of them, our country shall repudiate every principle of its constitution as a Protestant and Republican government. And we've read that a couple times already. So here we got on the right, it says, while some people think that Catholics worship Mary, Pope Francis said Catholics' tradition is clear that Catholics seek to help in growing closer to Jesus, affirming the adage, to Jesus by means of Mary. So they're going to Christ through Mary, and they're talking to a dead Mary, which is, there's going to be a spirit. And I can't read what's up there. Pope Leo the 14th prays before the icon of Mary, health of the Roman people of Saint Mary Major, and that there is the new Pope, and you can see him there. He's praying to Mary. My wife and I recently went to a funeral on a Sabbath. It was at a Catholic church, and they had three statues in the wall above. You can see the one there on the left, but they had three of them. The one on the left up there was Mary. Then they had Christ dead on a cross. and then there was a man on the right, which I assume was Peter. Every time one of them walked up past on the front, they all turned and bowed to the three of them. This is an AP article. Italy. Pope Leo XIV closed his first public blessing as pontiff with a Hail Mary after invoking the feast day of Our Lady of Pompeii. And we're going to look at what that is. On his first papal trip, he went to the sanctuary of Our Mother of Good Counsel in the medieval village of Genazzano, and on the drive back, stopped to pray by Pope Francis' tomb in the Basilica of St. Mary Major in Rome. And so, where did we go? Where did they come up with this Our Lady of Pompeii? Unlike so many of Our Lady titles, which goes back centuries for their origin, this one is quite recent. The events which gave rise to this title took place less than 100 years ago. By the last half of the 19th century, the Valley of Pompeii near Naples was practically deserted. Of the comparatively few people who still lived there, most had lost their ancient Catholic faith. Ignorance and superstition prevailed. Only a handful of people bothered to attend the services in the little parish chapel. In October 1872, a man named Bartolo Longo came to the valley. He was the husband of the Countess of Fusco, who had some property there. And Bartolo came to see what condition it was in. He had been reared a Catholic, but was probably still one in name. And we have heard that about some of the Seventh-day Adventists, like nominal Seventh-day Adventists, although it seems he was not very devout. On October 9, and I believe that was in 1872, a few days after his arrival, he was walking along a rather desolate road when suddenly a voice spoke to him. It told him that if he wished to be saved, he should spread devotion to the rosary and that Blessed Virgin had promised, and that was the way to find salvation. So we know this is where this here, when they talk about the feast of Our Lady of Pompeii, this is apparently how it got started. So these things was predicted. And everything from the Bible I quote is from the King James Version, and if it's not, I will tell you. Daniel 7:25, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and law, and they shall be given into his hands until a time and times and a dividing of time. And then from this another version, it says, and it speaks words against the Most High, and it wears out the set apart ones. See, they didn't call it saints here, the set apart ones of the Most High. And it intends to change appointed times and law, and they are given into its hands for a time, times and a half. And then on a footnote of appointed times, this is another word for festivals. And most people, when they go and read those things, they don't know that that's what it refers to, except for feast keepers. And there is a place in that I think that it refers to the National Sunday Law, but that's just my opinion. It's in Daniel 11:30. For the ships of Chittim shall come against him, therefore he shall be grieved and return, and shall have indignation against the holy covenant. And shall he do, and shall even return, and have intelligence with them that forsake the holy covenant. Now, I looked up that in Merriam's dictionary, that word forsake, it means to leave without the intention to return. So when it says that they forsake the holy covenant, means that they don't, according to this dictionary, that what that word means is that they are not going to go back to the Holy Covenant. Now, we're going to go into Revelation 18:1, and then we'll see what Mrs. White says about it. And after those things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lighted with its glory. The Lord, and then what Mrs. White says, the Lord has enlightened us in regard to what is coming upon the earth, that we may enlighten others. And we shall not be held guiltless if we are content to sit at ease with folded hands and quibble over matters of minor importance. So when we come across truth, we are to let other people know about it. And sad to say, there's a lot of people today who are content to sit at ease. Now, this here happened recently, and I'm going to go through some of these because there's a problem. Separation. This is what Trump was saying. He signed this executive order. Separation, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I'm not sure. We're bringing religion back into our country. It's a big deal. That's a problem. Trump said during a Rose Garden event celebrating the National Day of Prayer, because we know what type of religion that they're talking about. We just talked about them. It's the Protestant type of religion, Sunday keeping Protestant types of religion. Continuing, President Donald Trump on Thursday signed an executive order establishing a presidential commission on religious liberty. Openly questioned the separation of church and state in an escalation of the White House increasing fever for Christianity. They say separation between church and state. I said, all right, let's forget about that for one time, the president said during the Rose Garden event, celebrating National Prayer Day. On the same article, it also says Trump has leaned increasingly into his Christian bona fides, establishing a White House faith office in the West Wing. Going back to Revelation 8:1. And after these things, I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lighted with his glory. And when we'll get into more of that when we go into the three angels message. But when these things start happening, they're going to be very glorious. Second verse. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. So we're going to look at it where it says it has become the habitation of devils. We're going to look at that because I have an example of that there. There is now need of earnest working men and women who will seek for the salvation of souls. For Satan, as a powerful general, has taken the field, and in this last remnant of time, he is working through all conceivable methods to close the door against light that God would have come to his people. He is sweeping the whole world into his ranks, and the few who are faithful to God's requirements are the only ones who can ever withstand him, and even those he is trying to overcome. Third volume of the Selected Messages. Now we're going to get into some of this here. I have an ebook of this. If somebody wants it, I can email it to them. I also have a physical book. Christopher Story, that's not his real name. When I was going to the meetings in Fresno back 2000 to 2010, Bill used to send articles of what he would be writing. One of his best friends was Malachi Martin. And Malachi Martin was a consult to some of the popes. John Paul II was one of those. And he and Malachi Martin and the satanic infiltration of impurity in the church. And we're going to go and look at some of the things that Christopher Story wrote in his book. And afterwards, after Malachi Martin died, it was obvious that some of these meetings that he attended, that's why he knew what went on. Page 359 of that same book, Malachi further informed the author, that's Christopher Story, that following the completion of his papal remit, he was invited by the Pope to discuss his future, as it had been necessary for Malachi to function as a layman while engaged in this intelligence operation. The Pope and his advisors were of the opinion that it would be necessary for Malachi to remove himself from the Roman scene altogether, lest his cover was blown. So that's when he came to the United States. Now, where this is going to be, I put a picture in here of this building. It's not this room, but necessarily, but it's this building. The enthronement of the falling archangel Lucifer that was effected in the course of a dual black mass celebrated within the Roman Catholic Citadel on 29 June 1963. The abomination took place in the chapel of St. Paul. And it says the dual black mass celebrated. There was also at the same exact time one, or the same day at least, that one occurred here in the United States, which I will not go into. Dr. Henry Alfred Kissinger, who passed away just recently, the mentor of George H.W. Bush Sr., who advised President Ford to dismiss William Colby and to replace him with Bush Sr., was born Heinz Kissinger in Germany on May 27, 1923. He was in fact just 40 when the double black mass abomination led from the Vatican took place in 1963. Letters of, and this is what he had, letters of authorization and instructions handed to the sorcerer at the blasphemous altar of Satan in the Vatican Chapel by a person honored with the special title, International Delegate of, but anyway, that name there, extraordinary to the enthronement. So when Malachi Martin was, this is what he called it, the altar of Satan. Are you each, and this is what he says that the ceremony that went on there, this is a little bit of it. Are you each and fully consenting that by this oath you transfer lordship and possession of your souls from the ancient enemy, Jesus Christ, the supreme weakling, to the all-powerful hands of our Lord Lucifer, and the lost, obtruse, perverted, reprobate idiots, powerful princes of the Catholic Church, and from all the world's quarters of power responded, we consent. What they consented to was one accord, was with the immediate launch of the, and it goes on to more about the that process that they went through. Basically, they was selling their souls. Now, it's here, if people knows that this here is for the Committee on Public Education, and I put it's a YouTube thing. I think it's about 20 minutes long, which is part of it. This guy on the left and this woman on the right. The woman on the right was the one directing this program, and they want to put the 10 Commandments in Texas. They want to put it on all the walls. And this guy on the left, who works in the education system, says that, or in says that he has sing and mentioned 2 or 3 other ones that don't recognize the Bible God as their God. And so, and he was going against her, and it was going back and forth. He kept on saying, I don't agree with you because this is against some of the people's principles. And then she would say, but, you know, and they was talking about the separation of church and state, which is it's been reported that it's not in our Constitution, but it is in a letter, and we're going to read that letter here in a little bit. These are some of the things that they're trying to do to America. Is they're trying to go put them up, the Ten Commandments up there, to try to save the morality of our nation, starting with the young people. Now, this here is what happened in Texas the last couple days. And I wonder if it's from some of these arguments that's going on. You see, there's a woman that's in this tree here that was rescued. There was 24 confirmed dead. Now we know that there's 27 confirmed dead, 18 adults and 9 kids, with 20-some kids still missing. You see another guy that's hanging on this pole. This rescue boat's coming over there to rescue him. Just a couple things that's happened weather-wise. This morning, they have another 4 inches that's supposed to be downpouring later today. So just think of when sometime in the near future, people that keep the seventh day holy are going to be blamed for these disasters. Now we're going to go at the bottom of January 1, 1802, letter by Thomas Jefferson addressed to Danbury Baptist Association in Connecticut and published in a Massachusetts newspaper. And we'll go over it. And we'll see that when they talked about the separation of church and state, that it was in reference to the First Amendment. Believing with you that religion is a matter which lies slowly between man and his God, that he owns account to none other for his faith or his worship, that the legitimate powers of government reach action only and not opinions. I contemplate with sovereign reverence the act that the whole American people which declared that their legislators should make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state. See, so it's when he says building a wall of separation between church and state, it is directly in response to the First Amendment. Adhering to this expression of the supreme will of the nation in behalf of the rights of the conscience, I shall see with sincere satisfaction that progress of those sentiments which tend to restore to man all his natural rights, convict he has no natural right in opposition to his social duties. So when people say it's not in the Constitution, well, Thomas Jefferson, with this here statement, refers to that what it means is that there is supposed to be a wall of separation between church and state. Now we'll see Article 6 of the United States Constitution also specifies that no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States, meaning that no official state religion will be established. And that is even more direct than the First Amendment. This here is in Article 6. And that's in Wikipedia, separation of church and state in the United States. Now we're going to go into the Constitution of California. And I have 3 volumes. This is one of them, 3 volumes that comprise of the federal Constitution that's annotated. And this here is done by the California Juror Society. And we're going to go over what was in when they wrote this here about the Constitution of California. First, when you annotate to find out what that exactly is, I put a definition in here. When you annotate, you write critical explanations to add extra insight about something. These explanations can be necessary to understand writings in which the language might be difficult to make sense of without clarification. And that's from vocabulary.com. Now, the term Jural Society is synonymous with the word state. The charter members of the California Jural Society, who people this country, is also known as our people, as the one people mentioned in the Declaration of Independence. The one people are distinct and separate from all other peoples for the reason that they are white men and women organized under Anglo-Saxon customs and usage who follow the teachings of Jesus Christ. And I'm not going to go into the rest of it, but you can see how racist that these people are. And it gets even more in depth when it talks about that. But that's not why I put this in here. That was in the pre part of it. Article 1, Declaration of Rights. Now, it's very similar to the federal Constitution, but you can see at the bottom, and I think that I made it bigger here, and I copied it. The Sunday Law of April 10, 1858, and people don't talk about this in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. They just talk about the Blair Law. Held to be in violation of this section, Ex parte Newman, and we will look at that case. Then there's another one that followed a couple of years later, the Sunday Law of May 20, 1861, held not to be in violation of this section. So they had one that was in violation, then later it was not in violation. And the dissenting opinion of Justice Field and Ex parte Newman adopted. So let's look at this here. The California Supreme Court issued what is believed to be the only 19th century case in the United States that overturned a law designed to protect the observance of Sunday, regarded as a Christian Sabbath. So that's what it was. They was trying to protect the observation of Sunday. Remember what we've seen before, the preference of one religion? Doing so, the court overturned the conviction of Jewish merchant Morris Newman, described in the case as an Israelite who had been imprisoned for selling clothing on a Sunday in Sacramento and refusing to pay the fine for violating the law. And I know this is more than 100 years ago, but we know that they're going to come back. California Constitution, first article proclaimed in its first section that all men are by nature free and independent, and have certain inalienable rights, among which are those of enjoying and defending life, liberty, acquiring possessions, and protecting property, and pursuing and obtaining safety and happiness. The fourth section of the article provides that the free exercise and enjoyment of religious profession and worship without discrimination or preference shall forever be allowed in this state. And I will put a little note there, unless there is a virus. Chief Justice David Terry wrote the lead opinion in the case, which focused on his belief that the law was to discriminate or preference favorable to one religious profession, rather than a mere civil rule of conduct, and that the legislation had no power to enforce upon the citizen a compulsory absentee from his ordinary lawful and peaceable avocations. So they're not supposed to have one favorable religious profession, but that they can have a civil rule of conduct. That's kind of make an excuse for it. Although the court had ruled that the laws were constitutional, it did not make them popular. In 1883, California became the first state that completely eliminated the so-called Sunday blue laws. So back then, it was a big thing. Now, this here is from, and the spelling back there, I copied this just as the way it was. The following is an act for the observance of the Sabbath, approved May 20th, 1861. The people of the state of California, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as folates Any person who shall hereafter keep open on the first day of the week, commonly called Sunday, any store, workshop, bar, solution, banking house, or other place of, I think that's supposed to be business, but that's not what it says, for the purpose of transacting business therein, except as after specially provided, shall be guilty of a misdemeanor, and on conviction there shall be punished by a fine of not less than $5 or more than $50. And then that's goes on to next section 2. This here was the same thing. Basically, it's in the Sacramento. Let's see here. It's in a Sacramento Daily Union. Section 1, any person who shall thereafter keep open the first day of Sunday of the week, commonly called Sunday, any store or workshop, EUR, I think that's bar, balloon, or spelling was different back then, banking house or other place of business for the purpose of transacting business. Don't know what that is, except as herein especially provided shall be guilty of a misdemeanor. And this is also from that article in the Sacramento. Remember, this was an explanation of the first section of the California Constitution annotated. And this here was repeated in another art, I think it was Article 4, the same thing, and held to be in violation, and the next one was held not to be in violation. This is a section 4 is where that one was. So it wasn't in just one section, it was in 4. Now, with the stuff going on in Texas, I found this in Life Sketches from Mrs. White. Well-equipped tent meetings should be held in the large cities such as San Francisco, for not long hence these cities will suffer under the judgments of God. San Francisco and Oakland are becoming the Sodom and Gomorrah, and the Lord will visit them in wrath. And I know that there's other places he mentions other places, but I thought that there was interesting. And this here is a vision that she had when she was in New York. As these lofty buildings went up, the owners rejoiced in ambition, pride that they had money to use in glorifying South. Much of the money that they thus invested had been obtained through exaction, through grinding the faces of the poor. In the books of heaven, an account of every business transaction is kept. There, every unjust deal, every fraudulent act is recorded. The time is coming when in their fraud and insolence, men will reach a point that the Lord will not permit them to pass, and they will learn that there is a limit to the forbearance of Jehovah. Seeing that passed before me was an alarm of fire. He looked at lofty and supposedly fireproof buildings and said, they are perfectly safe, but these buildings were consumed as if made of pitch. The fire engines could do nothing to stay destruction. The firemen were unable to operate their engines. Have we been warned? We have been warned, time and time again. Going back to the National Sunday Law, the dignitaries of church and state will unite to bribe, persuade, or compel all classes to honor the Sunday. The lack of divine authority will be supplied by oppressive enactments. So it's not just enactments, they're going to be oppressive. Remember, we had lockdowns, they was oppressive. Political corruption is destroying love of justice. Have we seen that today in the United States? Political corruption is destroying love of justice in regard for truth. And even in free American rulers and legislators, in order to secure public favor, will yield the popular demand for a law enforcing Sunday observance. Liberty of conscience, and see, that's what law of Seventh Day we know it is as of liberty of conscience, which has cost so great a sacrifice, will no longer be respected. In the soon coming conflict, we shall see exemplified the prophet's word. The dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. And that's Great Controversy, 1888. As the Protestant churches reject the clear scriptural arguments in defense of God's law, they will long to silence those whose faith they cannot overthrow by the Bible. And look at within our church, when you bring up the statutes and the judgments within our church, what they long to silence the people that bring up the statutes and the judgments. Why? Because it doesn't fit their agenda. Calamities, National Sunday Law Crisis, calamities. Now, there's and I did, one of the last one I did was calamities, and she has many quotes about calamities bringing in the National Sunday Law. Then down below it says, is history being repeated? Now, the next I'm going to be doing is coming out of Babylon. And just to give you a little thing here, there's the Tower of Babylon, and this is the BIS. And the BIS, which I did in one of the other presentations, the BIS is run and controlled by the Vatican Bank. And you see similarities with them. But next, there'll be the three angels message that I'll be doing. By the way, Texas, that area in Texas, they're having another flash flood. It's supposed to be starting any time. They're expecting another 4 inches.
That was really sad about that flood out of nowhere. I mean, I'm sure they knew it was going to rain, but I think it was a big surprise to have that much. And I mean, those kids were there at the camp, and I don't know exactly what happened, but the flood came in and it just took them. And can you imagine the poor parents just frantic?
One of the guys giving the press, he says he lives right along that road that goes by there, and he said we had no warning that this was. They had between 4 and 12 inches in just a very short time. And in one of my emails I sent out, that river went from like 4 feet to 34 feet in a matter of just a couple hours.
That's so sad.
You know, these
Hello,
things,
can I say something?
Mrs. White says that these things are going to be getting more frequent and more frequent. Yes, Mark.
Yes, first of all, hi, Shabbat Shalom, and I hope everyone had a meaningful 4th of July holiday yesterday, as long as we still have freedom of religion, press, and speech. In Romanism, you're probably aware there's a large segment that's involved in a movement called charismatic Romanists. In other words, they feel that they, by speaking a prayer, some strange prayer language, and note the word strange, that they can be better, get closer to the Lord. That's basically the idea. How far are they along as far as, unfortunately, being much closer to linking up with spiritualism? I don't call it I call them charismaniacs, but really, I don't need a special prayer language to communicate with the Lord. Okay, so
right.
How close are they to the Spirit? What do you know about the group, and how widespread are they both in the U.S. and elsewhere, if you're aware of it?
I just know that what Mrs. White says, that the spiritualism is going to become, before the second coming, that it's going to become more pronounced. In fact, she said some people, their loved ones, will be coming and parading before them.
I used to be in the New Age before I became a Christian, and I can tell you when you do that sort of thing, you're not really speaking yourself. You're doing what's called channeling. You're allowing a being to come into you and speak through you. So they are fully involved with spiritualism when you do that. They actually tell you to give over your tongue to another so that you can
Are you
babble
talking about
on.
Kimberly, are you talking about speaking in tongues where nobody understands it?
I'm talking about both. I'm talking about because we didn't do speaking in tongues. We spoke out quote unquote truth from another being or another source. And speaking in tongues is the same way. I went to a place and I found that they were charismatic. I didn't know that when I went. And they were going, okay, just give over, let it come
Oh, yeah.
in, and they will
It's the
speak
wrong
through you.
spirit.
Yes, you let a spirit in to speak, whether it's babble or whether it's intelligent English or whatever language you're speaking. It's all the same thing. You're channeling a spirit, so it is spiritualism in its full form.
But I don't think the Adventist Church does that right now. Myself.
I know when I went to the International UFO Congress to learn the technology stuff that was behind, there was two speakers that I refused to go and to listen to. Whenever one of them, her name was Cannon, but and they're mediums. And people, well, why aren't you going? I said, because she's a medium. I don't believe in that stuff.
Yep.
I would not go and listen to her.
I do know our church has a lot of different issues and a lot of things that are sneaky back there that we don't know about. And I do know that my dad saw things and he went to meetings where they had things and they were doing that linguistic, what's that thing called? LMP or whatever. And they were trying to
Holistic
help
programming.
with that. And I've had people tell me that they have gone to some of our churches and they heard something really bizarre, like Jesus isn't alive or something. I mean, something not that, but something that bizarre. And she looked around the room and nobody said anything or did anything. And so when she got home, she said, "Did you hear him?" And her mother just argued to death, said, "Absolutely not. They did not say that because they know what they're doing." So I don't know where it is. I know all the churches aren't that way, but we have weird things going on in the Adventist church, I'm sure. It's pretty sad.
Oh, well, it
But
was reported that one of the NLP speakers spoke at Andrews, where they
Yep.
teach the,
Oh, yeah. Yep.
that he
And
was a
we know,
speaker
we
there.
know some, and I won't mention names that came to BE that used it. And they said, yes, that's what they do. And I was like, of course, we don't use them now, but there's just a lot of weird things that happen. And I don't know. And I'm again going to say, I'm not going to put the quote Seventh-day Adventist Church down, but as far as the leaders and the people, I'm glad I'm not part of it. I just am. I don't know where they're going. I don't know what they are. There are some very good and very innocent people in it, but I don't believe that the church itself is going to go to heaven. I think it's the people in it and not all of them. Because there are people that are just, they're innocent people in there, but they're gonna learn. And that's what we're trying to speak and, let them see, and not just feast and stuff, but just in general, there's a lot of things that they do that they allow. And I mean, the majority of them don't even keep Sabbath. It doesn't matter. And that shows how much they love Jesus because they don't really care. It's just like, oh, it's okay. Everybody's going. It's all right. Everything's fine.
But
So
just going back to Mark's question, I remember because my mom was Roman Catholic, she talked about that charismatic movement back in the 60s. So that's how long this has been going on, and it just kind of infiltrated other places. Whether it's coming to Adventism, I don't know. I just know there are certain
well, that was the celebration churches.
Yeah, the celebration
you don't
churches.
hear the word celebration church anymore, but it was big, and that was part of my talk I did. There's just a lot of it going on, and people just need to be careful wherever they are, whether it be the Adventist church or just anywhere, even, here, there can be somebody that's gone off and does strange things and says strange things, and we just try and stay where you're supposed to be. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off and back on for Brent, but you guys go ahead and keep talking.
Keith, I thought that quote you gave from Ellen White